gonna get started on this chuck project again and disassembling the chuck. I got all the jaws out. I got them numbered and placed here, and I'm gonna get ready to clean them. Again, I got my chuck key made up, and it worked great. Later on down the road, I'll make an actual handheld chuck key, but this thing works awesome, so I really like it. I'll bring you in a little bit closer, take a look at these jaws as I get them cleaned up. Here's a close-up view of the chuck key. I just cut a piece off the stock here. I drilled and tapped a hole in this impact socket. It's a 3/4 socket. I drilled a little dimple in this hex stock here, pushed it in, and then tightened it and applied some Loctite. Okay, now that I have these chuck jaws out, I want to disassemble them and just make sure that they're clean, well oiled, and ready to go. I'll be using this hex socket here. This is essentially what I built with the chuck key, just its bigger brother. So there you go. Okay, got all of those off. I'm gonna go ahead and just work on one. You don't need to see the whole thing. I'll just work on this one, and then I'll come back on whenever I get to the rest of the chuck. So this is a machine fit, so it's pretty tight. You can see it's got this track inside here where you can adjust where the jaw gets positioned. You can turn the jaw around, and it just gives you the full capacity for every diameter that you might come across for the chuck. So there's all my components. All I want to do here is get all the surface rust off of it, get it nice and clean, get everything moving correctly. Using a little bit of steel wool to get this surface rust off and get these tracks clean. One thing that's interesting is I noticed that there's some felt right here between these threads, or in the flat part of these threads. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of that's for. I assume it acts probably as a gasket to keep in the oil, but I'm just guessing. So if anybody knows what this felt portion piece is inside of this screw, and that fits right here, just like that, and that's the felt piece. So that's kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting to find something like this inside the Chuck. So if you know what that's for, let me know. All right, that's it. That's cleaning up the jaws here. I'm gonna finish the other 4 and then get back on the rest of the Chuck. Okay, here we are back at the Chuck. I'll give you a good look at it without the jaws in place. There is a little bit of dirt and grime inside there, but it's not too bad. Really not a whole lot of surface rust. On the outside of this though, it's pretty rusty. So while I still got the Chuck on, what I want to go ahead and do is run it in a slow speed and use the lathe as the turning mechanism to get a good first clean on the Chuck. So make sure my settings are right. I'm going to go for a spindle speed of 42. I'll start off with. And I want to hit the reverse. Okay, I'm going to use the lathe to actually help me clean this Chuck here. So I'm going to spray it down with some thinner. Speed it up just a little bit and get a wire brush on it. You can see it's looking a little better, but still not quite what I want. I think I'm gonna have to pull out the big guns. All right, I got the big boy out. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna drop back down to about 86. I think that's about as good as I'm gonna get it here on the lathe. So not too bad. I got all the surface rust off. I've got some deep rusting going on in here, but that's okay. Overall, it cleaned up pretty nice. Now it's time to get the chuck off. So first thing is we got to locate our eye bolt stud. This chuck is not light. It takes a little bit of muscle to get this thing moving around. So here is our eye bolt stud. So let me go grab the eye bolt and we'll get that in there. All right, I got my lifting hole located. Got my eye bolt here. I'm gonna thread it in almost all the way to get full engagement. Okay, that's just about all the way. I'm gonna tighten the lock nut. There you go. All right, there it is, ready to go. Now while I remember, while this thing is in, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the power to the lathe, because if this thing spins by accident, if somehow, I know it would take a lot for it to actually get the machine turned on, but if for some reason it did, somebody didn't realize this was in here, it would really tear some things up. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the external power to the machine. Okay, next is the locking nuts, or the locking studs that we have here in the back. I believe we have 6 of them, and you can see they're numbered. So there's number 1 up, and there's number 6. So what I want to do is I want to leave number 6 locked, and I want to unlock everything else. So I'll start with number 1, and what I'm going to use to do that is this 1/2 inch extension on this ratchet here. Just like that. And you can see, if you look real close, it shows to lock you turn to the right direction, to unlock you turn to the left direction, and it should be about a 1/2 turn or so. So I am going to unlock this. like that. It's a little tight. There we go. And I'll get the rest of them done. That one's unlocked. I'm gonna get all of them unlocked except for that number 6. I'll leave it locked. Okay, I got the chuck prepped, ready to lift off the lathe here. Got all the bolts unlocked except for one. Got my lifting device on. Now I need to get my strap tied onto this. So I want to take a minute to recognize Keith Rucker. He used what's called the bridge technique to remove his chuck and to exchange his chuck. And so what he did was he used a piece of 2x8 is what it looked like. He set it across the ways here, and he lined that up with his bench on the other side of the room. By doing that, he was able to remove his chuck, set it on the 2x8, and then roll it across to his working bench. That was a pretty ingenious idea, and I thought it was neat how he did that. But to counter that, I'm also going to use a bridge technique. So first thing I have to do is get my strap in place. I got my strap here. I'll run it through my eye bolt. Put that in place. Now that I got my strap in place, I can pull the tension off of the chuck. The only difference is I'm going to be using my bridge crane so that I could lift it off of the lathe. I can slide it across and then drop it back down on my working table right over here. So there you go, Keith. I'm using the bridge technique too. Don't be too jealous, but I do want to commend you on your bridge technique. I thought it was an awesome idea. I know you've talked about building one of these or a jib crane or some type of a lifting device, and I'm real interested to see you do that. So hopefully you get that done this year. All right, I think I got it figured out. So these locking nuts here, I had them turned all the way to the unlock, and there's actually a certain angle that they have to be turned. They can't be backed off all the way. There's a little indicator right here, and this has to be pointed in the up direction, and when that points in the up direction, that releases the tension off of this, and you can see it's spring loaded. And so whenever you see it pop back out, that's how you know it's unlocked. Now you can overshoot it and come out too far, which will put tension on this stud and it will keep it from unlocking. So I got it unlocked. I got it broke free, and it should push right on out, just like that. There it is. Okay, so I got the chuck off, and now I'll roll it over to the workstation. In one of my other videos, I talked about this A-frame gantry hoist, and it's actually called the T-Series. And the reason why it's called the T-Series is because the hoist actually goes underneath in between the legs. The legs are connected at the top versus at the bottom where you usually see them connected. And so by them being connected at the top, it allows this hoist to flow underneath the legs. And here's a good reason, or a good application for that. So I'll just show you how the hoist goes right under the legs. And then I've got this 5-foot extension on the other end, and that's gonna allow me to go right up to my workstation and drop the chuck right in place. Okay, I want to go ahead and remove these locking studs, get them out of the way so that I could lay this thing down flush without it tipping over or possibly damaging these studs. And that wasn't tight at all, so that's another good reason for taking this all apart, because you find things like that. That stud had no tension on it, so I'll make sure I get that in good and tight, and so that it doesn't go nowhere when the machine's running. And there you go. And that wasn't tight either, but what I suspect is that this is supposed to remain loose so that whenever you do lock this in place, it's got a little wiggle room so that whenever you lock that shaft in, it can actually find it. It can locate it, get it in the correct orientation, lock in place. So this one you do want a little bit of play in this, but this one you don't. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and number these. I don't think that it really is critical that they're numbered, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and number them. I'll make this one number 1. And again, I don't think this is real critical, but I want to make sure everything goes back as it was assembled. All right, got all the studs off. Now I'm ready to lay this over. All right, got the chuck down on the table. It's laying flat. I didn't take any time to talk to you about this chuck, so I'll take a minute. So the chuck is a Jizholt brand, and it looks like it's a lot 18430, and it says NG24, so I don't know what that means. And then it says Madison, Wisconsin, USA. So I don't know much about the brand. It looks to be really good quality. I don't know if they have a good name or not. I know Jizholt made lathes, and from the research that I've done, they have a pretty good reputation, and they were American made. I don't think they're made anymore. So anything that you purchase would be an older machine. I haven't heard of them making any new machines. You can see inside the tracks that hold the threads in place. They're pretty beefy. We've got a pretty large through hole here. And I'll take some measurements on this so that we can be exact. Okay, from top to bottom, it looks like 5.5 inches. So you got 5.5 inch thickness on this plate here. The tracks for the jaws, they're right at about 2 3/8. 2 3/8 wide for these tracks. The center bore, the initial bore is 4 inches, 4-inch diameter, and then when you get down into the bottom, it looks like that's about 2.5-inch diameter back at the bottom of the chuck here. And then the overall diameter, 15 inches in the diameter here. Now what the chuck can hold, what the jaws can hold may be a little different. We'll slide one of these in place and take a look at it. Okay, so I think that's about the max that I would set the jaws at, and that may be pushing it there. But that looks like that gives us an extension of just about 3.5 inches. So 3.5 times 2, that'd be 7. So additional 7 inches, 22 inches. So the max I could get out of this is 22 inches if I was gonna put something with the jaws oriented in this way. To me, that would be pushing it. This thing can probably handle it, but I wouldn't want to test it out that far. And I think that my lathe, that's max swing, is about 24 inches. So I wouldn't want to push it. So I couldn't push it any more than that. So let's see what that looks like at 24 inches. That's right about there. So that looks a lot better to me. I'll give you a top view here. So that chuck jaw is sticking out quite a bit. That's actually just a little bit under half. So I would feel comfortable running it like this if I absolutely needed to, but I don't anticipate running anything quite that large. But you never know. Just when you think you got something big enough, you find out you need something bigger. Okay, that jaw is a little tight. The jaws are clean, so that tells me I've got to really do some work in these tracks in here and get all that dirt and grime out of it. Those things should slide smoothly, and I had to put in a considerable amount of work just to get that in and out without the thread in place. So that's the next step. is start cleaning this thing up. Wow, we got one. Look at that thing. Just the tension on that has made this thing hot, so I'm gonna spray some more brake free on it, let it set for a little bit longer.